What is up, everybody? I'm Rikoku Ninja here for Ninjacast, bringing you a review in 2020 of Borderlands 3. Now, I know what you're thinking, a little bit late to the party, but I believe that this review is relevant to today, specifically because I believe there are more people like me who skipped out on it when it initially came out that may be coming back around to try to pick it up. So what I hope to do today is to help you decide whether or not it is worth your time and money. Now, before we get into this review, I have a little bit of housekeeping about this review to tell you about, and that is that there will be spoilers and there will be talk of, let's just say, politically charged things, but don't go yet. All of that is relegated to the very end of the video. I'm saving all the talk of the story and the political agendas that may or may not be in this game to the very end, so if that's not your cup of tea, you want to avoid that. I will give you another warning when I get to that, so that you can scram and vamoose. But before that, I hope to let you know everything you need to know to decide whether or not Borderlands 3 is for you. So, with that little bit out of the way, let's start talking about the stuff that I liked about Borderlands and discuss whether or not it's going to be good for you. Alright, so if you're interested in Borderlands 3, you are probably a fan of the series and have played 1, 2, the pre-sequel, or any number of those in any order. And if you've played those, then you know that the main appeal to Borderlands is the sense of humor and the guns and gameplay. And if the guns and the gameplay are your favorite part of the series, then you are in luck, because this game takes every bit of that and improves it with almost no exception. The guns that need to feel punchier than ever. The guns that need to be feather light and fast firing are the featherest of light, and they work wonderfully. Furthermore, all the manufacturers have been given upgrades, and they all feel a lot more unique per manufacturers. You have your Hyperions, which have shields, and they typically have shit accuracy at first, but then they get better the more you fire them. They also tend to have a bit higher fire rates. Then you have your doll weapons. They tend to have multiple firing, what's the word I'm looking for? Multiple firing modes where you can do burst fire, semi-auto, stuff like that. And then you have your Tediors, which tend to have different things with the reload where you throw the gun. Sometimes you throw the gun and it turns into a grenade. Sometimes you throw the gun and it grows legs and goes around shooting shit. Really fucking interesting. My favorite weapon manufacturer, Torg, I believe has gotten the best upgrade, and that is since that they have multiple firing modes as well, kind of like the doll weapons. And the main different firing mode that they have is that you get to fire impact, which are just, they fire big explodey things, and when they hit stuff they explode. But you can also do detonate, and that you will be able to fire at an enemy or ground or whatever, and they'll stick there, and then when you reload, they will detonate all at once. And you can booby trap some areas. If you know some enemies are about to run through a choke point, you can lay down some sticky bombs, kind of like the demo man from Team Fortress 2, and it just leads to a load of fun. Furthermore, all the weapons feel just a lot better. The shooting mechanics have improved tenfold. Every gun that I picked up felt lethal. It felt punchy. It felt exactly how it should. The effects are amazing. Whenever you're running around with Torg weapons, blowing shit up, everything just blows to bits. There's like fucking explosions everywhere, just like Mr. Torg would want. There's a new weapon type, the Children of the Vault weapons, which literally feel like you're holding a fucking rat rod in your hands. You even have to start them up with a key or pull a crank. Like, it's just really kind of rat roddy in the feeling, and none of them have reloads. They just overheat, and they're pretty interesting. And I can think of at least one character that has skills that kind of build towards using nothing but Children of the Vault weapons. Though I haven't tried it myself, so I can't really tell you. You'd have to look at builds for that. But the point I'm making is all the weapons, the gunplay, and the general gameplay loop is as good as it has ever been, and in most cases, it's way better. It just feels so good to run around with guns, shoot shit, blow shit up. So if that's your main draw with the Borderlands series, you're going to be happier than hell. It is just amazing what they've done. Like I said, I really love how they've reworked the Torg weapons. The Children of the Vault weapons are interesting. And all of them, they just feel fun to use. I have yet to find a gun, even the really weird ones. Like I found a shotgun, a Torg shotgun that shoots exploding saw blades and just randomly roam around till they hit something. And it's not the most useful of weapons because they literally fall out the end of the gun and just crawl around on the floor. And so they're really environment specific. Like if there's barriers between them and the enemies, they tend not to hit them and everything. And it's kind of a useless gun because ideally you're going to be really close to your enemies so that it doesn't have to crawl along the ground very far and it's easier to aim. But you also take the splash damage from that, so it's kind of a risk versus reward thing. Now, as far as negatives on the guns, one of the things that I found is that legendaries are far more... the drop rate for legendaries seems to be really, really high in the sense that almost every group was dropping at least one legendary. There was a lot of times where I would just bust a group of enemies and there's legendaries all over the place. There's orange weapons everywhere. And that coupled with the fact that it seems like their general thing is they brought back all the old legendaries, and I seem to get them quite a bit, like the Flacker. Shut up, phone. Like the Flacker, the Ogre, the Infinity Pistol. I'm trying to think of the other ones I've gotten, and I get copies of them. Like the Woodblocker Sniper Rifle, I have gotten so many of those damn things. I think every single enemy type has dropped me at least 4 Woodblocker Sniper Rifle. And that's kind of the downside to it, is while there's definitely more guns, you're getting more loot. It seems like you're getting a lot of duplicates, and it seems like the legendaries, for the most part, are trash. They're either not nearly as good as the really good ones, or they are just gimped in such a way that they're not very usable. It's a minor complaint. You're still going to find, like, especially if you had a favorite weapon, even a conference call. I got a conference call just the other day, and I was really excited, almost as excited as I was when I got 2 back-to-back Infinity Pistols with completely different elements and setups. So if you're a longtime fan, you're going to recognize these weapons. The Ogre is definitely a standout, especially since the main character that I've beaten the game with uses explosions everywhere, and anybody that knows the Ogre knows that that's all about, that and the Flacker, which is all about explosions everywhere. So if you really like the gunplay and everything in the past games, you're going to be well taken care of. That is probably the best improvement from number 2, is that all the weapons feel good. There's not a whole lot of duds, and even if the duds that are there, you're going to find 100 more different replacements for it. It's really well done. There's even customization. You can get weapon skins, little trinkets to hang on it. They're superfluous. They don't really do anything, but they kind of help you make each gun your own, and that's pretty cool. Then we go into the skills. The skills have been reworked in that every character has 3 different skill trees, 3 different action skills, and each of those action skills tend to have 3 different variations within that skill tree that you unlock as you put points into that tree. So while there's only 4 characters at the time of this recording, each of those characters has 3 different action skills, each with 3 different variations. So you're looking at about 9 builds per character, just baseline. And then there's some crazy builds, crazy hybrid builds that you can do. So there's even more than that. So each character is kind of like 9 different characters, and they play really differently. Like the character that I play as, I went into a heavily explosion-based one. But you can also do one that's more along the lines of using the Children of the Vault weapons, where you have heat management and everything at play. Or you can play one, she has a giant robot mech that she gets into, and you can play where you're controlling that mech and just laying absolute destruction. You become death incarnate and just laying down mountains and mountains of explosions everywhere you go. Or you can build it to where you basically summon it, jump out of it, and then it pilots itself and does its own thing. So there's a lot of different ways. So I guess kind of I do a rundown of the 4 different characters. The one I'm talking about is Mose, and she gets Iron Bear, which is this giant mech. And then your different action skills all are... The difference in the action skills are all about Iron Bear, but it's the weapons that you put on Iron Bear. You can get a grenade launcher, a homing missile launcher, a fucking nuke launcher, a railgun, a flamethrower, minigun, and it's just absolute fun. Every time I've gotten an Iron Bear, I've had like an ear-to-ear grin because it just feels great. I think Mose is probably the best character all around, in the sense that she just does a lot of really cool shit with her skills and everything in her builds, and I really enjoyed her, and that's why she's my first level 50 in the game. Now, after Mose, you've got Flak, which is a robot, and he kind of takes the place of Mordecai, Zero, and Gage from the previous games. And Flak has a pet that follows him around all the time, and then you can build this character to where you focus on the pet quite a bit. You can build this character to focus on being a critical hit sniper or critical hits. Just focus on critical hits. You could do a hybrid of the two. And I can't remember specifically what the other one is. But he's kind of like the rogue of the group in a way. He really feels like Mordecai and Gage and Zero all rolled into one character. And he's really fun. The build I am running on him is a pet support build. So basically I make my pet do a lot of damage, and then I just focus on supporting him and the team with health regeneration and stuff like that, and that's been really fun. Completely different playstyle to my Gage character. With my flat character, I tend to join other people in their games, and my pet and them will be on the front lines, and I'm just kind of in the background taking pot shots at enemies and triggering all my skills and everything like that to give everybody health regeneration and stuff like that. Whereas with Moe's, I was pushing the front line. I was always on the front line, just laying down absolute devastation with those and everything from Iron Bear. And then we have Amara. Amara is the siren of the group, and her builds are everything from controlling with the phase lock and the fists and everything, and then making it, debuffs and everything. She has a more support-heavy build, which is about debuffing the enemies as she throws shit at them. And then the build that I went for, because I was really missing Krieg by the time I got to that, and I really wanted to do a melee build, so I did her phase slam, which if you saw the early gameplay is where she jumps forward and these 4 arms come out of her and they just slam on the ground. And I've kind of built her as a melee brawler, and it's been fun. I'm not to level 50 with her, so I haven't fully fleshed out her build, but it's been really fun kind of playing through it and everything. I had to rebind because by this point I'd also switched from keyboard and mouse to controller, just for convenience sake. And I ended up having to rebind my melee attack to my left trigger, because I hardly ever shot at anything. I was just running around with a gun I found towards the beginning that gave me 140% melee damage. And I was just bayoneting shit in the face and then face slamming them when it came off cooldown. But even still, she's really fun. She's no Krieg. I don't think any character right now in current patch would qualify as face rolling the game about like Gage, an Anarchy Gage, or a melee blood explosion Krieg would, because those two characters were added later in Borderlands 2 Lifecycle, and they ended up just completely breaking the game. They made the game the bitch. Also, I don't think there is anything as game breaking quite like a conference call Boar Zero. Get Zero with a fucking conference call with that Boar skill maxed out, and he would wreck Borderlands 2. Though you have a lot of returning skills like Two Fang, being able to shoot 2 projectiles with 1 bullet, and I believe that is on Flak. Oh, and I'm also missing a character, Zane, and his unique gimmick is that he can not throw grenades, but have 2 action skills, and he is kind of like the Handsome Jack clone from pre-sequel, combined with, he's kind Wilhelm. He's like Handsome Jack clone, Wilhelm, and Zero kind of rolled into one, because one of his action skills is a clone, the other one is a drone, and then he has one where he throws up a force field. And he has probably the most build diversity because he can have those 2 action skills active at a time. A really devastating build. I haven't played him very much because he's a lot more complex. I've been kind of hoping that I could get quite a bit of twink gear before I really start him. I played him a little bit, just kind of get the feel for him and to look through his skill trees and kind of formulate how I'm going to play him. He has a build that's all about kill skills, and he even has ways to activate kill skills without actually killing stuff. So I've read a couple of guides where you can make it to where you can just always run around with all of his kill skills active. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. And then that pretty much covers it for the characters. I mean, they all feel really good. Like I said, I don't think any of them are game-breaking enough to give a Boar Zero or a Krieg or Anarchy Gage a run for their money from Borderlands 2, because they could just absolutely face roll the balance of the game. Other than that, everything else just feels good. The customization is great. None of it's in loot boxes. I used some of my golden keys. They work just how they did in Borderlands 2. You get them through shift codes and everything. They're kind of nice, but not required. There's a lot more to do as far as challenges and everything. And you can fast travel from any point at any time. And you have to go to like specific fast travel points that you discover along the way. Something that I think is different from when it launched to now is that the whole campaign just kind of scales to your level. So enemies will almost always be at your level. So you can, and about a third of the way through my first playthrough, I just completely skipped out on all the side content and just focused on the story so I could unlock the artifact slot and all this different stuff. And I would actually kind of recommend that because the game really opens up once you have full access to your build, and you'll pretty much keep leveled up to where you need to be, and the game will scale around your shortcomings pretty well. Now, I remember I rented the game on PlayStation 4 right after it first came out, and I don't believe it was that way because I remember getting stuck at the Catawagga boss, or the big ball on the moon boss, not to spoil too much. And I remember getting stuck there because I was like one level below, and the boss was really just fucking throwing down on me. But with all that out of the way, I kind of want to get into some of the qualms I have with it because it definitely has some flaws. One of them having to do with the level design and specifically with Gage and Iron Bear. I found that a lot of the maps and levels were designed in such a way where you would end up wasting Moses' action skill because Iron Bear would not fit. There's a lot of doorways and stuff that were big enough for Iron Bear to fit through, but there were invisible walls or something at play, and you just couldn't fit through them with Iron Bear. And since I built since I built Mose specifically around staying in Iron Bear all the time and doing explosive damage and stuff like that, I would end up having to jump out of Iron Bear with over 3/4 of my bar left constantly, and now I would have to wait for the cooldown, not specifically circumvented through skills. Like, I should have almost 100% uptime of Iron Bear, but because I was having to prematurely exit and everything, I wasn't able to get that. And it's just frequent throughout the story. There's doors that you can't go through with Iron Bear. There's parts of the story that you have to get out to activate stuff on the ground that you can't interact with while in Iron Bear. There's a few instances of bosses where you have to do a specific thing that you can't do in Iron Bear. You can't do any type of climbing in Iron Bear because you can only jump so high. And like I said, specifically with Iron Bear and Mose, the level design leaves a lot to be desired, and they should have probably kind of knocked some of that out because it's from the beginning of the game all the way to the very end, the final boss of the game. I had to keep on jumping out of Iron Bear to do specific things with that. So that was a major complaint that I had. It was really, really annoying. Another thing specifically about bosses is there's a lot of bosses, and again, this is from the beginning of the game all the way up to the end. The bosses would have immunity phases where you just can't damage them. And they go on and on and on. The final boss, they have an immunity phase to where if you don't do that one specific thing that Gage can't do while in Iron Bear, it lasts for literally 30, 40 seconds. Nothing. You can't harm them. And it just doesn't feel right. Like, the bosses should not have immunity phases, except for in like very specific circumstances, like, say you have a boss that mutates halfway through and it goes into a phase 2. Okay, they can be immune for that short little phase switch from phase 1 to phase 2 of the boss battle, but that's it. But these bosses just have cycles where they're invincible for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds. And it became really grating, really annoying, and it was kind of a chore to get through. Like, it just did not feel very good. And it seemed like it was just there to pad out the length and to annoy the hell out of you, which it totally does. So outside of that, I'm trying to think. I don't think there was any other real major sticklers I had for the gameplay and everything, so I can kind of get ready to go into the story. So if you don't want spoilers, you don't want to talk about any politically charged type stuff, now is your cue to leave. I'll give you a few seconds to do so, and then I will go into the story. Alright, if you're still here, you've been warned. Spoilers from here on out. We're going to talk about the story and specifically the problems. Borderlands has never had like the best of stories. Like, it's not groundbreaking sci-fi or whatever, but they've respected the lore that they set out. They've respected the rules of their universe that they set out, and they've respected the audience. Like, the key thing that they've always really had too is humor. And I can say without a doubt that the humor of Borderlands is absolutely dead in this one. And it's kind of like the pre-sequel. It actually has a lot of the same problems that the pre-sequel does story-wise, in the sense that nothing is funny and a lot of the characters are just really gratingly annoying. maybe to try to be funny or whatever, or possibly to do some ulterior motive, which I will hint at later. But I remember the character that you first meet that gets the first little character intro slides of Jenny Sprockets or whatever in the pre-sequel. And her character archetype was she was a lesbian. That was it. That was her entire character. Every time you talk to her, she was like, oh no, I'm a lesbian. If you're playing as a male character, oh no, I'm not like that. I don't like you. I like girls because I'm a lesbian. Did you know I'm a lesbian? Over and fucking over. And if you played as a female character and she would hit on you, hey, because I'm a lesbian, that means I'm interested in you. Do you know? And that was her entire character. She had nothing else about her going on. And Borderlands 3 amps that shit up to 11. Characters are not written realistically, they're not written humorously, they're not written to be likable. They're just written to push very, very annoying archetypes. And it's kind of a missed opportunity with the antagonists, because let's face it, they were never going to replace Handsome Jack. Handsome Jack is like the be-all, end-all villain of Borderlands and of most video games. He was really well written, really well portrayed, and really well acted. He was really well acted, and they were never going to one-up that, I don't think. But I see what they tried to do with the Calypso twins, I really do. They were trying to take pot shots at YouTubers and streamers and everything, and it could have been really comedic, it could have been done really well, but it just fucking wasn't. And that's the case with a lot of different characters, save for one, which is Ava. If you've heard anything about the problems with the story of Borderlands 3, Ava is at the fucking center of all of them. Because she's like the perfect example of what is wrong with the story and what they fucking done. Ava is a snot-nosed little brat. That's her entire character. There's no arc. She doesn't develop. The way you meet her in the beginning is exactly how she is at the end. She has no growth. She's fucking annoying. She's a fan service insert of whatever fucking Danger Hair writer that's at Gearbox. And it fucking shows. Like, it's not just, oh, they wrote a bad character. So they not only wrote a bad character, but they pushed all the fan favorite characters out of the fucking way and put this fan service, fan fiction, self-insert character right in the center of everything. They forced you to deal with her. They forced you to say, look, this is what the story is about. And it is. The story is more about Ava than almost any other character in the fucking series. And she still has no arc. She still has no development. She's the same stupid fucking character at the end of the game as she is the fucking beginning. And it's fucking terrible, because right after you get through, at the very end of the first Pandora segment, they gimp Lilith, who is a fan favorite character. She was a playable character in Borderlands 1, and she was a main character in Borderlands 2. She's now the leader of the Crimson Raiders, taking over from Roland. Her and Roland were a romantic thing in between 1 and 2, and then throughout 2 until his death. And they just completely gimp her. They strip her of her powers and put her in the back seat and tell her not to get the fuck back up. And then another thing you'll notice from the very beginning is that all the female characters are pushed to the forefront. You have Lilith, you have Tannis, you have Ellie, you have Maya, you have Ava, you have... And the male characters that are involved are oafs like Vaughn, or they're an alphabet person, like Hammerlock, which they fucked up his character by pushing his sexuality even harder than they did in the second one. Part of the reason Hammerlock was so good in the second one is because he wasn't, hey, that's Sir Hammerlock, that's the gay Sir Hammerlock, he's the gay guy. It was, hey, there's Sir Hammerlock, here's his character, here's his arc, here's what he likes, here's what he dislikes, and oh yeah, by the way, he's also gay, but that's not really a big deal, that's just who he is. And that's a gay character done correctly in a game. It's not, his entire character isn't his sexuality, and they did a really good job of that in 2. That is not the case in 3, because he comes back, and then it's all about how he's gay, and, oh, here's his husband, the head of the Jacobs Corporation, and he's gay too, he's a bottom. And, oh, look, they're such a cute gay couple. Did you know that they were gay? Hey, they're gay. And then there's a new cowboy character, Cliff, who is also gay. He is the gay. Alphabet people fucking everywhere. It's not so much that their sexuality is a thing, it's how it's a thing. It's how it's forced. And they have no actual character. They are the gay. They are the woman. It's how it's handled. And it's a terribly written story. They kill off Maya about a third of the way through to give Ava more siren powers. Apparently Tannis absorbed Angel's powers during the events of Borderlands 2, and her powers are starting to manifest in 3. And it pretends like that's not happening for a very long time until it just bluntly states the obvious. Oh, hey, did you know Tannis is a Siren now? And it's fucking horribly managed. And all the female characters are put front and center, but the fan favorite characters are pushed to the background so that Ava can be the main thing in town, with Tannis probably being the second most used character. Brick, Mordecai, and Tiny Tina are in it so little. I don't even think Brick and Mordecai get a character introduction sleeve. I think only Tiny Tina does, and then she's in the game for maybe a total of 5 minutes, depending on how long it takes you to get through the section you find her in. So, they disrespect the fan favorite characters and push them out of the way, and then they throw in characters like Ava. And then there's another character that I hate, I think as much, if not a little more than Ava, named Lorelei, that you meet on Prometheus. The first side quest you do for her, she's the fucking epitome of a danger hare. Like, when you think danger hare, that is Lorelei in every sense of the fucking word. And the first side quest you do is to go get her some fucking Starbucks coffee. And it's fucking annoying. All of her dialogue is annoying. Her voice actor portrayal is fucking annoying. Her as a character is fucking annoying. And they just keep finding ways to fucking force her into the fucking game and screech the story at you. That's another thing I like about the story. It seems like there's a lot more downtime in this game, in the pacing, where you just have to stand around while it yells the story at you as loud as it possibly can. This is something that was extremely annoying when I first played it right after launch on the PS4, but that I somewhat remedied when I played it this time on PC. From the word go, before I ever loaded in the game, I went into my settings and I turned off the voice acting. I just completely muted it. And I skipped all the story scenes because I already knew what the story was. So I just skipped it and I skipped straight into gameplay. And one of the things that kind of does is, it gives you a really good appreciation for their actual sound engineers. Because without the dialogue, you can hear all the background stuff and all the intricate little noises that happen that might be covered up by the dialogue. But it also really puts a hard focus on all the downtime when you're just sitting there and there's fucking silence because you've muted the annoying story. But it's not letting you progress and get back to killing shit and looting shit, the whole point of the game, because it wants to sit here and talk your ear off, which is fucking minutes after minutes after minutes of terribly written, horribly performed fucking dialogue over and over and over. I figure if you added it up, the points where you have to just stand there and wait for them to yell their story at you, it's almost like when people were complaining with Metal Gear Solid 4 about all the cutscenes and everything and how it felt like a movie. There's just, it's fucking forever. And it's constantly, every quest marker that you get to is just, hey, alright, now stand here and let us yell this story at you that you don't fucking care about. It's terribly written. Hey, yeah, I see you've been shooting and looting and really enjoying the game. Let's stop that because Ava has something that she wants to say. Hey, I know you're having a lot of fun blowing up those vehicles and everything, but Lorelei could really use a cup of fucking coffee. And it's just over and over again. They completely miss, there's points where the story seems like it's going to go somewhere, where there's going to be a genuine arc, and it's actually going to have a payoff. Like, one of the Calypso twins, Troy, there's kind of like he's playing second fiddle to the female twin, obviously, because she's a woman, but there's a point where it kind of looks like he might go against her, where they might actually tie into a fight, and, go after each other. And it really seems like it's kind of trying to push that, but then it just doesn't. And he just dies. And, you kill both of them, but plot twist, the woman was too strong, and she gets back up and becomes the final boss. Because, fucking woman plot armor. And another point is with Typhon, the first Vault Hunter. It's kind of a mixed bag because it does let you spend quite a bit of time with him, but then it doesn't really flesh out his backstory as much as I would have liked. And he was a really interesting character, and he kind of sticks around for a little bit, and then he's just gone. So, and most of the reason why the story doesn't work is, A, it's horribly written. None of the characters have any arcs. Like, they don't have any development or arcs or anything. The plot just fucking never goes anywhere. It tries to say, oh no, and then this happened, but it's pointless. The whole plot is pointless. It goes nowhere. And you're just forced to spend time with characters that are fucking annoying, and they're flat. They have no trajectory. They're not doing anything important or interesting. They're sending you to do it, and then you're not even in the cutscenes. Used to, the cutscenes in the game were stuff that happened around you, and you were acknowledged as being there. Now you're anywhere in the vicinity when the cutscenes happen. The cutscenes are all happening to these other characters that you don't give a shit about because it's written and performed in a way that where your characters aren't actually there. They'll be talking to you and then something happened and it switched to a cutscene where it happens to the fucking go nowhere character. And then the cutscene will end and then all of a sudden those characters are back to talking to you like nothing happened. But yet you're not acknowledged anywhere in the fucking cutscenes at all. You're not a part of the story. It's not your story. And I think that's probably the biggest sin of the entire story is that you're not the story. The story is something that's happening around you. You're not it. You're not involved in it. You're just somebody that has to fucking sit there and listen while it yells it at you. I mean, it's no secret why this is. It's because they had a definite agenda when they were writing the story, writing these characters, and it was a social justice. I hate to say that because everybody's like, oh, go back to your basement, but it's fucking true. The story suffers because of all the social justice they just want to fucking ram down your throat. That is the agenda of the story. That is the whole reason the story does what it does, how it does it. And there's no real getting around it. The reason Ava is such a terrible character is because she was written to be a social justice icon. You know, a rebellious girl with dyed hair fighting against the world. You know, Lorelei. Look at this. A dyed hair feminist who just wants a coffee. I think she's a lesbian too. I had the dialogue muted and I didn't read the subtitles. But I'm pretty sure the subplot to Lorelei is that she's also a lesbian. I don't care. That neither adds nor detracts anything from her. She's still a shit character no matter what she fucking sucks on in her private time. But she was just such a grating and annoying character. I could not stand her. I could not stand her side quest. It was fucking terrible. Anyway, that's my rant on the story. If you've made it this far, you're pretty dedicated to finishing what you start. And at the end of the day, if you like the gameplay of Borderlands, it's still there. Just skip the story. The story disrespects the characters that you love from the previous games, and it disrespects you by forcing you to sit there and listen to them yell at it. If you want my advice, go into it, skip all the cutscenes, mute the voiceover, and play some music while you blow shit up with torque weapons. That's just my opinion, though. Let me know down in the comments how you feel about it. If you enjoyed any of this, please leave a like. If you did not enjoy it, go ahead and hit the thumbs down. This is for Koku Ninja, signing off.
It's a sloth.